in the here, we were starting Love Hay,
Yeah,
correct?
okay. Let's go.
Love Hay, yes. Said Remeir, at a time when a person suffers, what expression does the Shekhinah use, so to speak? I am burdened by my head. I am burdened by my arm. If the omnipresent is pain for the blood of the wicked which is spilled, how much more for the blood of the righteous? Not only this, but anyone who leaves his deceased relative overnight transgresses a negative commandment. If he left him overnight for the sake of his honor, in order to bring him a casket or shrouds, he does not transgress. They do not bury him in his ancestral plot. Rather, there were two cemeteries set aside for the court, one for those who were beheaded or strangled, and one for those who were stoned or burned. When the flesh is decomposed, they gather the bones and bury them in their place. The relatives come to inquire after the welfare of the judges and the witnesses, as if to say, we have nothing in our hearts against you because you have judged correctly. They do not mourn, but they grieve, for grieving is only in the heart. Four executions were given to the courts: stoning, burning, beheading, and strangulation. Reb Shimon says burning, stoning, strangulation, and beheading. This is the procedure for those who are stoned.
Right, so we've just read in the previous parak about what happens to people who are stoned. Now we're going to learn today about the procedure for the other three forms of execution. Mitzvahs hanisrapin. Okay, so when people are burned, they do not get burned at the stake as was a common thing, unfortunately, among other cultures. A lot of the motivation of how to choose a death penalty was done following the principle of even though he's worthy of a death penalty, choose a death penalty that'll be quick and won't cause too much pain. So the nisrapin is based on the way that Nadav and Abihu died. The fact that it's called a streifa, that they were burned, but their bodies were left intact.
Right.
Right. So the fact that they were left intact, it gives us a clue that it's only the insides that need to be burned. So they would bury the person up to his knees in manure, so that he couldn't shift. Okay, so he's stuck in position. The nosnin suda kasher letoch haraka, and they would take a
coarse scarf.
A scarf, right? That was there was a tough one inside a softer one, which they're going to wrap around his neck, and but they don't want to cause damage to his neck. They don't want to cause him pain on his neck, so they don't want. So they put a soft one onto there. It reminded me a bit of the way that when they do the nowadays they do that execution by lethal injection, and they still sterilize the point where they're going to stick the needle in. Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I think it is probably.
But that would be consistent with this, that you give the person dignity.
I never thought of that, but now that you say it, yeah, you're sterilizing the guy who's going to be gone in like 2 minutes. Like
Yeah. So they wrap the rope around his neck. So you have the two witnesses who are, as we saw before, the witnesses are the ones who have to carry out the execution. There's no delegation of the job to some sort of faceless executioner. It's if you're testifying against somebody to kill him, then you've got to be prepared to follow through with the job. Okay. So they force him to gasp open, and what's happened in the background is madlik es pasila. They've melted some lead in the background, and as soon as his mouth is forced open, they pour the molten lead into his mouth. The Yorides lesoch me'av v'chomeres es b'nei me'av, and that is it goes inside him and burns him internally and kills him like that. It doesn't sound very nice either.
No, it does.
I'll go for the lethal injection. I mean, chas v'shalom, it shouldn't be either, but
Wow.
Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Afhu im meis biyadam lo hayu mekaymin bo mitzvah streifa. So he says, Rabbi Yehuda, they got to be careful that if he says if they strangle him while they're pulling the rope on either side, then they're not going to be yotze, and this is terrible that they're killing a person not according to the way based in said. So what do they have to do? They have to just use tongues to force his mouth open. Okay, and that's and that way you get the molten lead into his mouth. Okay, and so he agrees about the procedure of the lead, but he says to force his mouth open, you just got to use tongues, otherwise you run the risk of strangling him. But the halacha follows Tanakama. Amar Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok, Maaseh bevas kohen achas shezinta. There was a case of a daughter of a kohen who committed adultery. That they actually burned her at the stake. They surrounded her with sticks and they burnt her. Amru lo mipnei shelo hayu beis din shel osa sha'avaki, because that particular beis din was not a bunch of experts, and as a matter of fact, the Gemara clarifies that they would tzdukim, and the tzdukim don't believe in Torah Shebal Peh. So they say when it says here that she has to be burned, they say okay, so she has to be burned.
Yeah.
Okay. Mishna Gimel.
We've said many times that the court has tries all that it can not to go through with these procedures, any of these procedures. They try to, did this really happen to anyone at any time? Any of these four?
Yeah, of course. The Beis Din did carry out executions. Absolutely, they have statements about how often a Beis Din could execute. If they did once in 7 years, then it would be considered bloodthirsty. But nonetheless, Lamasia, they did carry out death penalties. But there came a point in time when there were when there were so many people who were committing capital offenses, that they said this is not even a deterrent anymore, and they were executing people left, right, and center, and they scrapped the death penalty altogether. So,
if someone read that, this burning, they might think of it as a good deterrent to think before they do anything. That might, in today's world.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'd rather take the needle, but this is.
Yeah. Okay. Mitzvahs and neragin. Now, those who are killed by the sword, they would behead him with a sword, the way that the non-Jewish kings do it, just off with his head. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, this is a disgraceful way for a person to die. Rather, they would put his head on a stump, the kotetz bekofetz, and they would chop it off with a cleaver. Amrulo, hein misa menoveles mizo. You're telling us that dying by the sword is disgraceful? Yeah, you're chopping him up like a piece of meat. And the halacha follows the chachamim over here. The argument that underlies between Rabbi Yehuda and chachamim is that Rabbi Yehuda is saying that doing it like the non-Jewish kings is chukas hagoy. It's darkei mori. They're doing it like this, and the chachamim say this is not chukas hagoy. Chukas hagoy is when you're doing something that's sort of a ritual. That's a ritualistic thing, but just because a guy wears shoes in the morning doesn't mean a Jew can't wear shoes. Okay, so and they also have a basis for it in the Psukim, where it says and it tells us that from the Ir HaNidachas that they go through the Ir HaNidachas with a sword. So there's nothing wrong with going through with a sword. Okay. And Nakomina came. It also talks about Nakima is a vengeance is with a sword. So the halacha follows the chachamim that the execution is carried out with a sword. Okay. And then mitzvahs nechnakin, the strangulation, hayu mishakin or sobazevel, same procedure as with the burning. They they stick him in manure to make him not move. And they put the soft scarf around the hard one. The korech al tzavaro, and they wrap it around his neck. And then they simply strangle him in position over there. There's a little discussion over here as to why they bother with sinking him into dung. It's not that important that he doesn't move, because it's not like they have to aim the lead at a small hole. They just have to strangle him. And furthermore, it doesn't seem to be any need to put the soft scarf around the hard one, because in any case he is going to die from strangulation. But the position here, I think the conclusion that Kahati comes and says is that it's just that they didn't want to make a difference, because that's the way that they do it for Sreifa. They also and the two are so similar to each other, so they just have the same procedure for the Chanika. Okay, now we enumerate the people who are liable to the various death penalties. Elohein ha-niskalin. So these are the ones who get stoning. For sexual relations, haba im al ha'im, somebody who has relations with his mother, al eshes ha'av, or for his father's wife, who even if it's not his mother, ala kala, his daughter-in-law, ala zachor, or with a male, ala behema, having relations with an animal, va'isha mevia is a behema, similarly a woman who has relations with an animal, a megadef, one who curses Hashem's name, Oved Avodah Zarah, one who worships Avodah Zarah, Hanosen Mizar LaMolech, he gives his child to Molech, Baal Ov, the one who, okay, so now moving on to all the other forms of Avodah Zarah, Baal Ov Yudoni, the people who use the different forms of divination, Mechala Lesa Shabbos, violating Shabbos, and Kalel Aviv Imo, where he curses his parents with Hashem's name, Vaba Al Nara Hamorasa, one who has relations with a girl who is engaged, who is married but hasn't yet gone to chuppah. So normally, the normal punishment for adultery is chenek, is strangulation. But there's a specific chumrah by a woman who hasn't yet gone to chuppah that she and her adulterer get stoning. A masis is one who incites other people to go to Avodah Zarah. Hang on, what's the difference between masis and mediach? Masis is so masis is for a singular, and mediach is one who incites the multitude. So they're two separate categories, but they both get stoning. Mechashef, a sorcerer. Ben Soreh More, and the wayward and rebellious child. These are all by stoning. If somebody has relations with his mother, b'shogeg, chayiv aleha mishum eim umishum eishes av. He has to bring two chatos, one because it's his mother and one because it's his father's wife. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Eino chayav ela mishum ha'em bilvad. So, and Rabbi Yehuda says he's only chayav once because of his mother. So that may be there may be. Why is there a difference between them? The reason of Rabbi Yehuda is that it says so it specifically is there a kasub that the pasuk is coming to tell us that he's only chayav because of his mother, but the halacha follows the Tanna Kama that he would have to bring two chatos. Habal Eshes Av, one who has relations with his stepmother or his father's wife, or even his father's ex-wife. Chayav aleha mishum Eshes Av u mishum Eshes Ish. He's chayav because of his father's wife and because she's a married woman, if she's still married to his father. Bein b'chaye aviv, bein la'achamisas aviv, and it doesn't matter even if his father has died and she's a widow. He's still liable for his father's wife. Bein mina erisin, bein mina nisoin, and it doesn't matter if he's even lived with her. If he's done kiddushin with her, then there's an issur of eshes ab. Haba al kalaso. He has relations with his daughter-in-law. Chayev aleha mishum kalaso umishum eshes ish. So the two isurim come to him immediately, both because the two isurim are chal together. As soon as she marries his son, she's a married woman, and she's also his daughter-in-law. So since they come together, he's chayav for 2 chatas. Bein b'chaye beno, bein la'achar misas beno, and even if his son dies subsequently, his daughter-in-law remains asa to him. Bein mina erisin, bein mina nisrin. Doesn't matter whether she's gone to the chuppah or not. As soon as he's put the ring on her finger, she's asa to him. Haba al hazachor, he has relations with the male. Ala behema, with an animal. Ba'isha maybe I said behema. Im adam chata behema me chatas. So they also kill the animal. So the Mishnah is asking us, so what did the animal do wrong? The animal, why do you have to kill the animal? It didn't do anything. Okay. Ela lefi shebas la'adam takala al yada. But because it was a michshol to a person, so it also has to be killed. So therefore it also has to be stoned. Davar acher, and a different aspect of this is shelo teheh behema overes b'shuk v'yomru zohe sheniskal ploni al yada, that the animal gets to survive and it remains a source of disgrace even to the person even after he's been executed, because he's been executed for having relations with the animal, and the animal's still walking around in the shuk, and people are saying, that's the animal.
Right.
So they have rachamim on the person himself who is put to death, and the animal doesn't get to walk around either.
Wow.
Okay, and it's kind of a bit reminiscent of Bilam's donkey, because the angel killed Bilam's donkey, as that Bilam shouldn't be humiliated and people look around and say, this is the donkey that beat Bilam in an argument. Okay, Sanhedrin Gimel base.
If he declared to him, my father is acceptable to me, or your father is acceptable to me, or 3 cattle herders are acceptable to me, Ramea says he can retract. But if we come and say he cannot retract, if he was under an obligation of oath to another and he said, vow to me by the life of your head, Ramea says he can retract. The comment, however, say he cannot retract. These are the ones who are disqualified: one who plays dice, one who lives on inches, pigeon flyers, and shivas merchants. Said Red Shimon, originally they called them shivas stockpilers. When the oppressors increased, they changed to calling them shivas merchants. Said Rabbi Yehuda, when they have no other trade, but if they have another trade, they are qualified. These are the ineligible relatives: his father and brother, his father's brother and mother's brothers, his sister's husband, father's sister's husband, and mother's sister's husband, his mother's husband, his father-in-law, and his brother-in-law, they, their sons, and their sons-in-law, and the stepson alone. Said Rabbi Yossi, this is the Mishnah of Rabbi Akiva, but the original Mishnah stated his uncle and his uncle's sons and all who are eligible to inherit him. This applies to all who are related at the time. If he were related and then became unrelated, he's eligible. Rabbi Yehuda says even if his daughter died and he has children from her, he is a relative.
Okay.
A friend.
Oh, that's it.
Wait, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Bavasha Beis Gimel.
A man may not open a bakery or dye shop under the storehouse of another, nor a cattle shed. In truth, in the case of a storehouse of wine, they permitted these except for a cattle shed. A store in a courtyard, one can block him by claiming, I cannot sleep due to the noise of those entering and leaving. One may make utensils and go out and sell them in the marketplace, but one cannot block him by claiming, I cannot sleep due to the noise of the hammer, or the noise of the mill, or the noise of the children. One whose wall was near the wall of another may not place another wall near it unless he distances it 4 amos from it. And with regard to windows, he must leave 4 cubits above, below, and opposite them. One must distance the ladder 4 amos from a dovecote so that a marten should not spring into it, and a wall 4 amos from a gutter so that he cannot stand a ladder there.
There's still more in that Mishnah.
That finished. One must distance a dovecote 50 cubits from a town, and one may not build a dovecote within his own property unless he owns 50 amos of land in every direction. Rabbi Yehuda says an area of 4 kor, the extent of a dove's flight. If he bought it, even if it within a distance, an area of a quarter kav, it remains standing. Okay.
Okay. Get in the face.
Okay. If a woman said, receive my get from me, she needs 2 pairs of witnesses. two who say she said so in our presence, and two who say he received it in our presence and he tore it up, even if the first witnesses are the same ones as the second witnesses, or if one is from the first pair and one from the second, and another joined with each of them. A Nara is betrothed, she and her father can receive her get. Rabbi Yehuda said two hands cannot make acquisitions as one, rather her father alone receives her get. Anyone who is unable to take care of her get cannot be divorced. If a minor girl said, receive my get from me, it is not a get until it reaches her hand. Therefore, if the husband wants to retract, he can retract because a minor cannot appoint an agent. But if a father said to him, go receive my daughter's get for her, and if he wants to retract, he cannot retract. Excuse me. If one says, give this get to my wife in such and such a place, and he gave it to her in a different place, it's void. If he said she is in such and such a place, and he gave it to her in a different place, it's valid. If a woman said, receive my get for me in such and such a place, and he received it for her in a different place, it's void. Now, Eliezer validates it. If she said, bring my get from such and such a place, and he brought it to her from a different place, it is valid.
One more, yeah.
If a woman said, bring me my get, she may eat truma until she get reaches her hand. If she said, receive my get for me, she is forbidden to eat truma immediately. If she said, receive my get for me in such and such a place, she may eat truma until the get reaches the place. If Eliezer says that Eliezer permits it immediately, prohibits it immediately.
Yeah, prohibits immediately. Yeah. Okay, Sukkah.
All right, and we have Gimel Yud. If a non-Jewish slave, a woman, or a minor recited Hallel for someone, he must repeat after them whatever they say and let it be a curse upon him. If an adult was reciting for him, he must respond after him, Hallelujah. In a place where they are accustomed to repeat, he repeats. And where the custom is to recite as it is, he recites as is. Where the custom to recite a blessing after it, he recites a blessing after it. And everything must be done in accord with the local custom. If one purchases a lulav from his friend during Shemitah, he must give him the esrog as a gift, because it is forbidden to purchase it during Shemitah. Originally, the lulav was taken to the temple 7 days, and in the provinces it was taken 1 day. After the temple was destroyed, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted the lulav is taken in the province in 7 days in remembrance of the temple, and the entire day of waving is forbidden.
Okay. And brachas, Hey Aleph.
One should only stand up to recite the tefillah in a reverent mood. The pious men of earlier times would wait an hour and then recite the tefillah so as to direct their minds to all the present. Even if a king were to greet him, he may not return the greeting. Even if a snake were to crawl down his head, he may not break off. We learned that if a Gentile king came along,
correct, that's different. Yeah, because that's a pikuach nefesh.
We mentioned the power of the rains and who revives the dead, and asked of the rains and the blessing of the seasons and the Havdalah in your favor. You favor man with knowledge. Rabbi Akiva says one recites it in an independent blessing, and Rabbi Eliezer says in the thanksgiving. If one says your mercy extends even to birds' nests, and for the good which we will do to us, shall your name be remembered? We give thanks. We give thanks. He is silenced. If he went before the ark and erred, and another shall take his place, he may not decline at such a time from where he begins, but the beginning of the bracha where he fell into error.
Right, and Tamid, Gimel Tes.
The Kohen who won the privilege of clearing the ashes of the inner altar entered and took the basket and placed it in front of himself, and he would scoop up the ashes and place them into the basket. And at the end, he swept the rest inside it, and he left the basket and went out. The Kohen who won the privilege of clearing the ashes from the menorah entered the Hekel, and if he found the 2 eastern lamps burning, he would clear the ashes from the rest of the lamps, and he would leave those 2 burning in their place. If he found the 2 eastern lamps was extinguished, he would clear the ashes and relight them from those that were still burning. And afterward, he would clear the ashes from the rest. And there was a stone, in front of the menorah in which there were 3 steps, upon which the Kohen would stand to prepare the lamps, and he would place the jug on the 2nd step and exit. They would not tie up the lamb, rather they would bind it, Akedah style. Whoever won the privilege of carrying the religions would hold the lamb, and this is how the lamb was positioned in its binding. Its head pointed to the south, its face was turned to the west. The slaughterer stands on the east side of the lamb and his face toward the west. The slaughterer slaughtered and the talmud of the morning was slaughtered by the northwest corner of the altar on the second ring. The talmud of the evening was slaughtered by the northeast corner on the second ring. The slaughterer slaughtered, and the receiver of the blood received it. He came to the northeast corner of the altar and would apply the blood to the east, and to the north, came to the southwest corner and would apply the blood to the west, and to the south, the Kohen would pour the remainder of the blood into the southern base of the altar. Okay.
One more, yeah.
He would not break a hind leg of the talmud, rather he would break a hole in the area of the knee and hang it from that hole. He would skin the lamb as it went down until it reached the area of the breast. He reached the breast and cut off the head and gave it to whoever won the privilege of carrying it. He cut off the feet and gave them to whomever won the privilege of carrying them, and completed the skinning. He tore open the heart, removed its blood, he cut off the forelegs and gave them to whomever won the privilege of carrying them. He went up to the hind leg, right hind leg, cut it off and gave it to whomever won the privilege of carrying it. And the two, and the two testicles were left attached to it. He tore open the body cavity, and thus it was completely revealed to him. He took the fat and poured it on a place of the incision of the head on top. He took the intestines and gave them to whoever had won the privilege of carrying them, in order to rinse them. They would rinse the stomach in the rinsing chamber as much as it needs, and the intestines will be rinsed at least 3 times upon marble tables which were between the pillars.
Okay, that's us.
I think I like
Okay.
I don't think I like that job.